Welcome to the Supreme Love Project, where you learn to love supremely so you can live supremely. This is a Power Hour. This is the place where you can get the information you need to heal the terrors in your soul and launch a revolution in your life. Get ready. Take notes. Now, here's your host, Jeanine Staples.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Supreme Love Project. I am Jeanine Staples, your founder and host, and we are here with ColdCrush, another fantastic interview with a guest expert that is going to knock your socks off. We have Takara Shelor from magnificentyou.com. She's going to talk to us all about our noble seeds, our limiting beliefs, and help us to understand more ways, additional methods through which we can crush the cold that is surrounding us like a tundra, that is isolating us from others, that is disassociating us from ourselves. And Takara, I feel so blessed and so excited to have you here with us in the Supreme Love Project and on ColdCrush. Welcome.
It is such a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're grateful. So, Takara, what I'd like to do with the community is help us to get to know you a little bit better. So I'd like for you to take a few minutes and tell us your story. How did you come into this work? And give us some insight on where you are now.
Okay, I'd be delighted to do that. I was once an industrial engineer working in a pharmaceutical company. I was also a manager and had 40 different people reporting to me directly. And in that scenario, the stress was ridiculous. I was the only female manager in the entire plant, and every decision that I made directly affected the bottom line for the company for the day. Sometimes there would be as many as 5 people standing in line waiting to ask me questions, and again, every time I gave an answer, it affected the bottom line of the company. And so eventually, under all this stress, I hit the wall, and hard. I woke up one morning feeling very, very ill, and the next thing I know, I'm laying in the fetal position on the floor remembering being raped. That was 15 years after it happened. The event happened when I was 18, and this was 15 years later.
Right.
So in that moment of trauma, remembering trauma as if it just happened, it was this giant doorway or gateway that allowed me, even when I was in the moment, even when I was feeling the sadness and the anger and the terror and everything else about it, I knew it was a magical key and that all the reasons I'd been unhappy were suddenly going to be revealed to me. I actually looked at it like, yay, finally I'll have some answers.
Wow.
So I decided to pursue finding, digging deep and healing that wound, and then in the digging through that wound, I found other wounds, and so I started basically a 20-year journey of personal and spiritual empowerment. But, I've done all sorts of things. I've lived all over the world. I lived on a yacht in Fiji for a while.
Nice. I've
done a lot of things for my own personal healing, but then to turn around and assist other people. So a lot of my teachings came to me directly, and I've helped a lot of people through the processes that I've created.
That's powerful. That's amazing. And, thank you for sharing that story. There are so many of us, myself included, who have those breakthrough moments that help us to recall a space of, crushing abuse, loneliness, fear, anxiety, and it's a real gift and a real blessing to be able to see that as a gift, see that memory flooding back as a gift. And so I commend you, and I'm glad that you saw it that way, that you had the vision. We're going to hopefully through this interview help other women and girls who are listening in from all over the world to have a similar awakening. Ushering in and supporting each other in those connections is a part of what we do in the Supreme Love Project. I know it's what you do at magnificentyou.com. And so let's talk a little bit about that. In your teaching, you mentioned that people are here to achieve 4 states, four states that you call the noble seeds. And I want the women, if you're able to, write those down, the noble seeds. Can you explain, Takara, what those noble seeds are?
Absolutely. When I was looking at, as I've evolved personally and spiritually, I'm always praying or seeking guidance about ways to explain things. And as I was writing certain things down, I kept noticing that they all began with the letter C. So that's how I came up with the Noble C's and calling it that. But there are 4 states that as we grow and evolve, we are trying to attain and maintain. And those are becoming calm, becoming clear, becoming confident, and becoming divinely connected. To be calm means that in any moment, whether it's tranquil and wonderful and we're with people that we absolutely adore, or whether it's the complete opposite where there's total chaos and confusion and maybe some animosity, even in those moments, we're in a calm, centered, balanced, harmonious state. We know who we are, and we're not all flustered, we're not all upset, we're just in this calm and wonderful place, because from that place, it's easy to make better decisions. For clarity, you know, so many people are trying to make decisions, but they're doing it from places that are not clear. They're based on their limiting beliefs, or they're based on fear, or they're based on some nonsense they were taught that's not the truth, or they're not seeing clearly the situation right in front of them because of the fears that they're running subconsciously. So becoming clear is very, very important. And there's lots of ways to do that. And you know, you've got tools and I've got tools, and hopefully through this event, these ladies listening will have lots and lots more tools in order to do that for themselves. The third one is being confident. And so you can be calm and you can be clear, but unless you're standing confidently in who you are and you know that what you have to offer has value, and you see the value in yourself and your work and your divine gifts that you've been given, whatever those may be, and however they support your friends or family or help those in the environment, in the community, you have to have confidence, or you'll stay small and insignificant, and you won't have the big impact in the world that you came here to have. And finally, divinely connected. I think when we're lined up and we are one with Source, when we are seeking guidance and we are aligned with our beliefs, whatever they are, related to a divine being, that everything becomes more magical. Synchronicity increases. Our intuition is hugely enhanced. All of that happens when we have that deep divine connection.
Yeah. You know, those, I don't want to interrupt you. Have you concluded
No,
with that?
I'm complete with that. Yes.
Okay. You know, the 4 Noble C's resonate with me at a very deep level. One of the things that I've learned in my work, and I know that you've learned in yours, is that when a woman is ready to lift her level of consciousness, to grow her awareness so that it becomes very sensitive and very sophisticated and also self-generated. And I think that's an important caveat, because so many of us as women, Takara, and I'd like to know your thoughts about this, when thinking about these Noble C's, we don't feel capable of calm. We don't feel a deep understanding about clarity. We definitely don't feel confident. And our connections are often manufactured and produced based on a prescription. So what I mean by that is there are many girls and women who are raised to be accessories or producers. You're either an accessory to a man in some way. You're somebody's daughter, you're somebody's wife, you're somebody's mom, or you're a producer. Like, you're a producer of work, you're a producer of children, you're a producer. So if you are not parenting or producing, parenting or partnering, let's say, or if you are parenting and partnering, but you want to do something different, you want to start a business, you want to travel the world, maybe you want to do it by yourself, maybe you want to do service in another way, in order to make decisions about that, you really do need to be calm and clear and confident and connected in a way that a lot of us as women are not socialized to do. So what I hear you saying about these 4 C's, it's just resonating on so many levels. And the thing that I think a lot of women might be saying is, well, how do I get calm? And what does clarity even look like? And can I really, I don't even have permission to feel confident. Can I feel confident? about
Right.
my purpose or my contribution? And another question would be, what does it even mean to be connected? Connected to what? Connected to whom?
Right.
And so now that we've got these noble seeds out there, what are some of the things that you can talk to us about in terms of generating these noble seeds authentically?
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot of ways to do it, and I plan to discuss some of that later on. But
okay,
in fact, some of the ways to describe it, I think is part of our conversation later. But it is absolutely possible to become and resonate and not only attain but maintain and enhance all four of those and have them resonant with you all the time, to really be in that calm, clear, confident, and connected space in every given moment. And the minute that you're out, the minute that you're feeling, some cloudiness in your thinking, or the minute you're a little bit flustered, you notice instantly and you're like, okay, let's go back into center. Once you've done some inner healing, once you've gotten really in tune with who you are, these become your gauges to know whether you're in or whether you're out, whether you're aligned or whether you're out of alignment with who you want to be and the life that you're trying to live and your connection with Divine Source. They become a gauge.
Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the things I'll say to partner with you in that sentiment is to the women who are listening, and I want to offer this to you, and I really would like to know your perspective about it. And I say this is my point of view, my vantage point as a recovering codependent. It's important for me to communicate the message that if, as a woman, anyone is listening to this and they're thinking about their space for calm or a moment of clarity or an anchor for confidence or a resonance with connectedness that has to do with someone else, that's probably a limited perspective on the noble seeds. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, and I'd like to know what you think, Takara. I'm imagining that there's a woman listening to us right now who's saying, well, I know how to be calm. When I'm holding my baby, I'm calm.
Right.
Or, if I'm walking my dogs, or if I'm taking care of my elderly mother, I'm calm. I'm in that moment, and I'm connected. I'm in that moment.
Right.
And what I would say is, if your space for the noble seeds, and I want to ask you if this is on par with what you understand, Takara, if your gauge for your noble seeds is dependent on the presence or approval of another person, I would guess that you haven't necessarily achieved the highest order of the noble seeds. Is that right?
Right. Absolutely. And they truly are noble. Like you're saying, there's the lower end and then there's the noble end. And the noble end is very much completely and utterly an inside job. We are talking about you, yourself, under all circumstances, knowing and being these four states. And it requires no other thing or no other one. And it takes work to get there. It's not a trivial thing, but it is, I believe, why we're here, to become all the, I call it becoming the magnificent self, and it's just a play on the magnificent you name that I use for my business. But I really think it is becoming magnificent as an individual, not an arrogant person, not someone who feels they're better than others, but someone truly standing in their truth, in what they believe and what they know, exhibiting and using their gifts in the world, making a difference, a positive difference in other people's lives. I think that you can only do that in the most impactful way when you have achieved these noble seeds and you're working from that place within yourself out in the world.
Yeah. And that's a real paradigm shift, what you're offering, Takara, because there are a lot of women listening. I know if I were listening to you 10 years ago, I would have thought, I'm stumped. Right there, I'm stumped. I don't, that's my limit. I don't know anything beyond what you're talking about. I can't even imagine feeling calm or clear or confident or connected without anybody else's approval or without anybody else's presence. What do you mean it's an inside job? That I need to feel calm and clear and confident and connected while I'm all by myself? or when my circumstances shift and change. Like, what does that even mean? Or like when my circumstances shift and change, and let's say I lose that job, or I lose that boyfriend, or my kid grows up and moves away, or my parent dies, and I'm calm and confident and clear and connected, even when these circumstances change and when these people go away. I can't even wrap my head around that. But what I hear you saying is that is the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate goal of Magnificent Do. It's definitely the goal of a supreme lover, for sure.
Right. It is absolutely possible, and easier. I mean, I said it's work. It is work. It requires commitment. It requires dedication. It often requires help, but it is definitely attainable. And every day gets better. When you do some of the things I'm going to be sharing later, and you pursue it, it's a commitment. It's a commitment to self. And when you become these things, you can then turn around and help your children become these things, and then they can become. It's changing the world as you change yourself. Yeah.
And then that's what I really wanted to ask you about before I get to this next question that's in front of me is, what are the benefits of developing the highest order of the Noble Seeds? What do you get out of it? I think that people need to know. I think you're generous and consummate professional by clarifying that it is work. I think that some people shortchange communities when they say, oh, it's a piece of cake, no problem. You can learn these skills in, this quick 2-week course, or 1-day seminar.
I call it the magic pill, right? They want the magic pill. Here, take this. You're all fixed. Go on. It doesn't work that way. But
so I appreciate you saying that it's an investment.
Right, but it's definitely worth it because in the end, what I call it is quiet elation. No matter what's going on, there is an inner joy. There is, you're quiet because you're calm and you're peaceful. You're at peace, truly at peace within. For some people, that's all they're seeking. Like, they can't even imagine that peace alone, right? And I'm adding all these others. But to just have peace within and not be worried about what people think and not be worried that they're doing the right thing and not be worried. Worry is horrendously awful and just takes up way too much mental space. People spend so much time worrying and obsessing over everything. I mean, we've been taught to be that way, but it doesn't have to be that way. And there's so much freedom in not having that always being chattering in your head. But there's a joy about it. There's a freedom about it. There's you restore hope in your life. You feel like you can accomplish the things that you desire. Maybe it takes a lot of time, or maybe it takes a lot of effort, but they are possible, the things that people desire. And all of that comes into play once you feel these noble seeds.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And those are some of the benefits that we could list the benefits all day, to incentivize women to make the commitment to do the work. I mean, and we'll talk about that as we continue. But let's talk about some of the barriers. We're talking about ColdCrush. So what are the 9 things? I hear you listed here that you have 9 things that are standing in the way of us achieving those noble seeds. We need to know what the blocks are.
Right. Well, going back to my industrial engineering background, I look for the root cause of a problem. And so, I've spent 20 years since my own spiritual awakening looking at and healing my own stuff and studying endlessly and going into a deep place and asking directly from source, what are some of the things that we can work on? What are the things that we're focused on? What are the things that are in our way? And this is the list that came to me. And over time, no matter what else I come up with, it always falls back into one of these. So these are 9 things. You might want to write them down. The first one is fear. The second one is limiting beliefs. The third one are judgments of ourselves and others. The fourth one is expectations. Again, our expectations of ourselves and our expectations of other people or situations. The fifth thing is our attachments to outcomes. The sixth thing is our guilt. And the last three I sort of throw together, and I call it shame, blame, and victimhood. They kind of go together.
Yep.
You know, but those are the 9 things that no matter what system you're using, no matter who is teaching, no matter who is assisting, these are the 9 things that we're all trying to heal. And we all have all of them to some degree or the other. And every bit of the work we're here to do is in those 9 areas.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are that's a comprehensive list. That's huge. I kind of want to talk about a couple of them now.
Okay.
You know, one of the things that, if you don't mind, I think one of the things that, they all jump out at me for different reasons. The limiting beliefs is a huge concept that I'm very deeply vested in because my research shows that there are 5 phenomena at the seat of the soul, between the soul and the soma, which is the body, that cause us to be entrenched in behaviors and in language, reproducing the same outcomes over and over again. They just kind of look differently. So limiting beliefs is something I really want to talk about. I feel like it's a terminology that's trending right now in our communities, and I think that some women hear about limiting beliefs, but they don't really know what those limiting beliefs are. They don't know if they have limiting beliefs.
Right.
You know, there are some women who are living a very sort of, pretty good life. You know, they've got basically what they want. You know, they don't have any real complaints, and they're thinking, oh, well, maybe I'm not one of those people with limiting beliefs because I'm not begging on the street right now, homeless,
right.
With a drug habit. So can we talk a little bit about limiting beliefs, what those are, and how a woman might see if she has some?
Right. A limiting belief is just what we think about anything. And they come from many different places. Some are passed down through our DNA. Some are given to us by our family and peers and religion and whatever else as we're growing up. We take them on. Some we make up on our own because of circumstances. So a typical limiting belief for a woman might be, oh, I could never do that because I'm a woman. Or I'm not safe because I'm a woman. I weigh a whole 108 pounds. Okay? So, I'm 5'4", I weigh 108. So, I don't feel like this really powerhouse kind of woman sometimes. Sometimes you see big burly guys and you wonder if it's safe to walk down that street, right? It's a limiting belief to think you're unsafe. Now, it's probably discerning, and we should always use caution, but sometimes we don't do things because we're operating out of a belief that's not the truth. Anytime we look at a whole group of people or group of beings, like, for example, my dog used to be a little pit bull mix. There's people that are terrified of pit bulls because they think that pit bulls all are the same, right? Well, right now politically there's this, these people are like this and these people are like this, and people fear people unlike themselves, whether they dress differently or speak differently or have different colored skin or they wear funny hats or whatever it is. There's fear that, and the belief is that all these people are like this, which isn't at all the case. Every woman is not angry or mean, and every woman is not a sweet pushover. Like, you cannot group women that way, but a limiting belief would group them all. A limiting belief would say that all corporations are horrible, or all bosses are mean, or, we all have these beliefs we've taken on that are not true. But if you believe it, what you see around you is evidence to prove that you're right about it. So the world, the universe, the dynamics and synergies and synchronistic meetings that you have in your life will live up to what you believe. So if you think all bosses are awful, you will absolutely experience boss after boss after boss being awful. because your limiting belief is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes.
It's like the world is malleable that way. So when you change your belief, truly, not just mentally saying, oh, I'm not going to believe that anymore, but I mean truly doing some deep work and actually releasing it and changing it, then if you no longer have the belief that all bosses are awful, suddenly a new person will come into a position and suddenly you're working for them and it's the best relationship you've ever had, and you are excited to go to work every day, and it's only because your beliefs changed. That's very real.
Yeah.
So that's I mean, I could talk all day on limiting beliefs, but there's a little snippet of what that looks like.
Yeah, those are really powerful examples and really helpful context to give to the concept so that we can get a hold on it. And I would say, to add to support you, is that for women who are listening, your limiting beliefs, you can identify them often by your narrative structures. So limiting beliefs often start with I can't. Well, I can't move out of this small town. Or it starts with I'm not able, or I'm not able to step outside of my comfort zone and make new friends. I can't. I'm not able. Limiting beliefs often also have absolute language. So you might be saying to yourself, things never work out for me. That's actually a belief. And you will produce evidence to support that belief, because belief systems are, they're benign. They only operate to fulfill themselves. So if your belief systems are any part of your internal consciousness that says you can't do something, you're not good enough for something, you'll never have something, you'll never go anywhere, you're not able to learn a new skill, you're not capable of starting a new adventure, you are not able to forgive yourself or forgive someone else for a transgression against you, that's a limit. That's something that is blocking you in. And that's a part of the iciness, the coldness, that blocks us from intimacy with ourselves, that blocks us from intimacy with other people. So, would you agree, Takara? And just like a way to conceptualize it?
Absolutely. I was giving the examples of the people outside of you and linking them together, and you were talking more about the limiting beliefs you place on yourself. They're all limiting beliefs, and they're all extremely debilitating. They can be they're like this giant box. Well, it's not even giant. It's like a really tight closed box we've put ourselves in. Here's the box. I can't get out of it because I have these beliefs that say I can't. And we really have to blast through that in order to like, for example, when I wanted to become a best-selling author, I had to go overcome all kinds of limiting beliefs. The box I had, if I wasn't already a best-selling author, then, obviously I had limiting beliefs that I couldn't be or I wasn't or whatever. So I had to work through a lot of stuff in order to go to that next level. And that is always true when you have goals and dreams and aspirations. If you don't already have those things, it's because there's limiting beliefs in your way. And you have to work through them in order to grow and evolve and become that being you have to be in order to attain the thing you're trying to attain.
Yeah. I mean, working through them, facing up to what they are, and getting a system in place to heal those beliefs and do some soul clearing and up level that's what this is about. That's what ColdCrush is helping us to achieve. There are two other concepts in your list that I want to talk about. And I think that they flow in relation to limiting beliefs. So the other one is expectations. So, and the reason I want to talk about expectations is because I think that for a long time, I didn't understand what it meant to suspend my expectations. I got that teaching confused with the teaching on limiting beliefs. So I heard on one end, and I'm saying this because someone listening might be thinking the same thing, Takara. So I heard on one thing from coaches that said, locate your limiting beliefs, understand your limiting beliefs, heal your limiting beliefs so that you can break through to new terrain, so you can break through some of your barriers to intimacy, your barriers to mediocrity, your barriers to like that, space of permanent fear and that crippling energy that you might have in your life or in relation to other people's control over you. And then when I heard talk about expectations, I heard people say, don't have any expectations. If you have no expectations, like zero expectations, you can never be disappointed. And I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. If I'm breaking through my limiting beliefs, don't I need to have expectations that I'm going to fulfill my dreams? So how is it that, on this other hand, I'm supposed to not have any expectations? So can you talk to us a little bit about expectations and what
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what I would say, based on what you were just discussing, is instead of calling your dreams an expectation, I would call it an aspiration. Okay? Because an expectation is how you believe. It really is a belief issue. How you believe you should behave, or how other people should behave, or how situations should be. So your expectation of self. Let's talk about this call right here. Okay, because we had a few little glitches before we got going. We had some sound issues, right?
Yeah.
So if I had expectations that this thing was going to start on time and it was going to be done exactly a certain way, and it didn't go like that, I could be very upset because my expectations were X, right? So expectations are that we project expectations on people around us all the time. I watch it again and again and again, and I'll tell you something. Of all the ones in this list, I think expectations are the ones that upset people the most. Because if that person isn't behaving the way that you think they're supposed to, the shoulds, all these shoulds that you run in your head, then when this person should be doing this, but they're not doing this, you get upset. You get angry, you get sad, you're like, what? They don't love me. Or, they're not a nice person, or all this stuff, because they didn't do or behave or say the thing you thought they should. That's having an expectation. So, so when you learn to flow with life instead of against it, that's kind of one of the things I teach. But when you learn to flow with life, when things go in a way that is unexpected, like a perfect example is when a computer breaks down or when a car breaks down. Okay? It always happens when you need something and you're really on a deadline, like you're supposed to be at a meeting and there's suddenly a flat tire. You can tell so much about a person by how they behave in that circumstance. You really can, because there are people that would be throwing things and profanities flying, and they're angry and they're stomping around, and because their expectation was that this day and this moment was going to look a certain way. But that's not what the universe had in mind for you today. The universe, however you want to define that, this is what the moment looks like. The moment looks like you're on the side of the road, you have a flat tire, it's rush hour, nobody's stopping, and you've got a meeting and you're already 5 minutes late now. So you're mad, you're upset, and you're throwing a little tantrum potentially because you can't control this moment and it's not going the way that you thought it should. And that also falls right into the attachments to outcomes. If you think things are supposed to look a certain way, like this moment, that again causes a great deal of distress for people. So, but having an expectation on how things will go and getting upset about it when they're not, again, with how people behave or how situations unfold, that is a huge, huge, huge source of displeasure, of anger, of sadness, of being upset. It is one of the biggest things that take people out of being in that calm, clear, confident, and connected space is when things don't go the way they planned or they hoped, or when people don't behave the way they think they should. And so the idea is to let it go. Look at it for the way it is. Okay, right now there's a flat tire. Okay, so obviously I'm going to have to readjust. I'm going to have to make a little phone call and say, look, I'm running late. I got a flat tire. There's nothing I can do about it. But getting upset about it doesn't fix it, And it's about learning to navigate in those moments differently. And the same is true of how people behave around people. Like if that person didn't behave the way you think they should, you can have a calm and clear, kind conversation with them and talk about something. Or you can just say, people are the way they are, and it's okay. It's okay that they're not who I am or who I expect them to be. They are who they are. And love them anyway. Don't let them take advantage of you, but accept people where they're at. And oh my goodness, it releases so much tension and so much unrest and so much unhappiness just disappears.
Yeah. And I think the way that I got tripped up on this idea of expectations really was helped by what you described as learning the difference between aspirations and expectations. So I want to underscore that distinction for our listeners. I want to repeat it. There's a difference between aspirations and expectations, because for me, I got stuck, Takara, because I thought to myself, well, if I don't have any expectations, how can I live a life? How? What do I just do? Go through life willy-nilly without any expectations? I couldn't let go of the concept of expectations. I was holding on to it so tightly and making it mean so much. Like, expectations are the things that have gotten me to where I am. I expected to get that degree. I expected to get that house. I expected to get that car. I expected to get that guy. And look, I got it. Well, not so much. It really, I was confusing goals with expectations. And then I also thought, when I was holding on to the concept of expectations, when I was struggling in my codependency, I thought, well, if you're my boyfriend and you profess love for me, I expect you to know what I need. I expect you to treat me a certain way. I expect you to buy me gifts on my birthday, on Valentine's Day, and for Christmas. And they need to be expensive. I expect that. And then what I would say is, everybody knows that. That's the way that it should be. That's just common sense. And really what it was about wasn't a common sense. It was me trying to control someone else and trying to control my environment, as opposed to practicing open, honest, direct communication from a feminine stance. I was just being fearful, going back to that top of the list of the 9 things that stand in your way of achieving the noble feat. I was really afraid of saying what I wanted, and I didn't know how to do it in a way that was accessible and inviting. So I just held expectations instead. I just had harbored deep-seated expectations that I didn't articulate, that I didn't communicate, and then I would punish people for not performing the way that I quietly, silently expected them to. So releasing that is about humbling oneself to the fact that we cannot control people and circumstances. That's not a part of why we're here. And then also, letting go of expectations, for me, opened up the door to my commitment to myself. Because if I'd let go of expectations and I suspended them and I started to aspire, what it meant was I could have long-term goals and hopes and then not be attached to the process toward that outcome, and not even be attached to that actual outcome. It just sort of gave me something to dream that was true to me, but that I didn't stake my life on, that I didn't make an objective that I aspire to equate to my worth or my power.
Absolutely.
Or,
Absolutely. Very well said.
And the other thing that I wanted to say, thank you. Well, the other thing, and for you too, very well said. I'm thankful for this list of 9 things. The other thing that I really want to hear more from you about is guilt. Guilt is huge in the feminine pain body, like as a collective pain body. We are primed to feel guilt and to carry guilt. And so I want to hear from you about the difference between guilt and shame, and also the consequences of having guilt overrun us in our daily lives.
Well, guilt and shame are very similar, but I think that guilt is, for me, when I talk about guilt, I'm looking more at I should do this, I should do that, and feeling really bad if you don't. Shame is I shouldn't have done this thing, or this awful thing happened to me. I mean, rape, for example. anyone at all, no matter what age it happened, if anyone is being sexually abused, male or female, there is a lot of shame. There is a lot of shame.
Yeah.
There is, I'm unclean now. There is, I'm no longer this pristine vessel. There's all this garbage that we naturally take on because we've had that experience, and it's a lot to work through. But there's shame. It kind of goes back to expectations. If we've built up all these beliefs around what it takes to be successful, then if we didn't come from an affluent background, we might have shame about that. We're female, we might have shame about that. In a lot of religions, women are taught that they're second-class citizens. And in some cultures, they're actually treated about like cattle are. And that's deeply disrespectful to the feminine nature and her power and her intuitiveness and her kindness and her nurturing and her skills and her gifts. But it's there. I mean, it's pervasive and it's subconscious and it's just there. And it takes a lot to overcome that. But shame is also, they're kind of similar, like I said, but guilt is I did this thing and I shouldn't have. Guilt is this person wants me to do something. Guilt is often used for manipulation of other people. Making people feel like they're obligated or that they should do this, or, people doing kind deeds because it's an expectation others have of them. They're not doing it out of love. They're not doing it out of kindness. They're doing it out of guilt. Well, that's a horrible reason to do anything because the energy's off on it, and there's no pleasure in it. There's no joy. There's no fulfillment. There's only obligation. And that doesn't, that's like a giant ugly blanket that makes you trudge along and not feel good about yourself. So, when people present me with opportunities, they're like, why don't you come to this potluck, or why don't you, would you come to my home for this, or whatever they're inviting you to do, or will you help on this project? Will you, volunteer your time and energy or money and whatever? If I don't feel inspired, if I don't feel, this divine sort of inspiration to do it from a place of love and a place of kindness, and it would bring me great joy to do so, my response is no. I don't think so. Because guilt is very, it's tied up with expectations. There's lots of strings attached to behaviors when there's guilt used to coerce. I think it's a very unevolved way to communicate. I think it's disrespectful. And that's just me. I work to love, honor, accept, and appreciate other people. Those are the 4 things that I think we should all do. We have to do it for ourselves. We have to do it for other people. And so when we're using guilt to coerce, then we're not doing it out of respect. We're not doing it out of appreciation. So those are just, was that helpful?
Yeah, it was very helpful. And I'm thinking about real life examples that women are socialized into that help us to really, or that cause, I didn't say help us, I don't want to say help us, that cause us to really repel your idea. So what you're talking about is like when you are asked to do something, these are novel concepts, Takara. Like novel concepts. When you're asked to do something and you don't feel energetic and abundant and connected to that task or that role or that obligation, you say no. Like there are a lot of women who are listening with their mouth agape, like, what? What do you mean? Like how do you even fix your mouth to say no? What is that? What are you talking about? Like there are so many women, myself included, who are trained hardcore to ignore our instinct, our intuition, our desire, our preferences, our needs, our health, our schedule, in order to say yes to whatever the person
Right.
on the other end of the line or standing right in front of us asks of us. You know, do
Right.
you want to help? No, will you please help me with the bake sale? You have 1,000 other things to do and 5 kids at home that you've got to help. You don't have time for the bake sale. But the person is looking at you with this expectation. They're looking at you with this need and desperation, and you crumble. You ignore your instinct to say no, and you say yes because you want to be a nice person.
You want to be a nice person.
Very generous. Mm-hmm.
Right.
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 You
mentioned. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, please. Oh.
You mentioned earlier about your own journey with codependency.
Yes.
You know, this is a perfect example where codependency comes in, right? The codependent person, because their happiness depends on other people's happiness, they will absolutely say yes every bloody time. Okay? They will.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth is, you have so much more to give when you've taken care of you first. And I'm not talking about taking care of yourself out of I'm better than anyone else, or I'm not talking about coming from that place. I'm talking about being so in tune with yourself that you know what your needs are, and you know that when you're filled up, when you're in that calm, clear, confident, and divinely connected place, that when you can come out of joy, out of support, out of love, out of kindness, you can do so much better in the world. But if you already have 37 things to do, or like my, to-do list, which has hundreds, literally, then saying no is actually beneficial for them because you're not going to be fully present there. You're going to be doing it. You're going to be only doing it a little bit. You're going to be distracted. Like I want to be fully in the now. I want to be fully present, fully helpful, and I do say yes a fair amount of the time, but only if I can be fully present there and engaged. And so there are lots of times when I have to say no. But it's okay because I play with other people who understand and don't have expectations, where they're like, we're thrilled if you can show up, but if you can't, we completely understand because we honor one another.
Yeah. And also, and that's a really good distinction. And I want to say to women, we are, so many of us, caretakers. I come from a long line of matriarchs who take really excellent care of other people, and they're recoiling at this idea to say no to offering service to someone else. They're not thinking that this idea is for them. And I want to sort of jump in and say, I do not advocate the use of our no in extravagant ways. So, for example, if you're the mother of 2 toddlers and you don't feel like taking care of them, well, you can't say no because I don't feel like taking care of the baby. I'm not going to do it.
Right.
I don't feel like it. That's not what we're talking about. If you
No, not at all. Not at all. Okay.
Right. If you have an elderly parent or grandparent who is defenseless and disabled, and there's a rotation of service in your family, and you're up, and it's your turn. You go, and you have to cook the food, clean the house, do the laundry, pay the bills, like whatever your person needs, and you just wake up that morning and say, well, I don't feel like it, so I'm not going to go to Grandma's house and keep her company and make sure her house is in order. Well, no, that's not what I'm advocating. What I am saying is let your no be no. Learn your voice and learn to operate in your authentic power when you are faced with opportunities that will disadvantage you, that will put you in hurt or harm's way, that will deplete you, that will run contrary to your sense of integrity, or that will piss you off and make you angry. If you are attuned to yourself, and you're building your noble steeds, if you're sincerely calm, if you're very, very clear about your creed, if you're confident in yourself and you're connected to yourself and also to your creator, when someone comes to you with a request to write a report for them that they're late on, or give them some money to help them pay a bill that they've neglected, or run their errands because they've not managed their schedule properly, or any other list of things to do, you can let your no be no without that guilt manipulating you or intruding upon your space. That is not to say that I don't think, Takara, you are either, you're advocating that women only do things they want to do when they want to do them. I don't think life works quite that way.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Yeah.
And your examples were very good about, if you are a mother, then that is your number one priority. It will always be your number one priority. You're a mom, and that's your job, and that's your role, and that is what you signed up for. And it is a huge responsibility. It's also a deep honor to have that role.
Yeah.
So, yes, and also the care for the elderly. Those were excellent examples of these are not optional. But the things that are optional, there's an amazing number of things that are completely optional that you get to decide. When people ask you for support or ask you to tag along, there was a really good, when you were speaking, I was reminded of something that happened yesterday where I said no. And it was a good friend of mine. I hardly ever get to see her. She's an engineer. I'm an engineer. 2 hours away from where we live, there's this big engineering after-hours thing. So the two of us could meet a bunch of professionals in our profession in a social environment, something that the two of us would really like to do. We're two women that live in a place and do kind of jobs where we're not out there meeting a lot of people in the local area, and we would love to. And so this opportunity came up, and I looked at it, and I looked at the speaker. And what they're speaking on is advancing nuclear power in Virginia. Well, I'm a serious environmentalist. So I am not going to go listen to some guy talk about let's have more nuclear reactors. Like, no.
Yeah.
And I just wrote her. And so when you were talking about being in integrity with, where it would be upsetting to you, I think it would be very upsetting to me to go there. And I certainly wouldn't want to speak up in the meeting and disrespect the speaker because, what he's speaking on is what they wanted to hear. So I just told her no. But we make those decisions based on whether it feels right and we want to be of service in that moment or whether we need to take care of us in that moment. That's kind of the way, the balance that we have to come up with.
Yeah, and I want to second what you're saying because I realize so much of it is about using wisdom and discernment. If you don't want to go to hear that lecture because you disagree with the premise and it's contrary to your creed, so you say no. Even though you're with your friend that you don't see very often, you create another opportunity and say, well, I don't want to do that because that will irk me and provoke me in a way that I'm not okay with right now, but I want to see you. So I'm going to say no to that, but I'm saying yes to you. What else can we do? Is there anything, like I miss you and I want to spend time with you. And that way, so that you don't have to embrace that guilt and make up a story that says, well, my friend's going to be mad at me if I don't go to this lecture, or she's not going to understand, or since I don't know how to convey my desire, I'm not going to say anything, and then I'll quietly resent myself and also then resent her and just make a big mess. And I wanted to say also about my examples about, caretaking for women. I wanted to say, I'm not advocating, that you let your no dominate your life to the extent that you neglect defensive people who you're obligated to either through parenting or partnering or being an offspring of someone like your ancestor, your generational connection. But what I would say is even in those relationships, you can still have a no. You can. And I'm not parenting or partnering right now. I'm delaying that on purpose. But here's what I do know about being a mom. When your kids are less defenseless, when they become more autonomous, they're little human beings. They have their own schedule. They have their own lives. So you have your life as a mom. You might have your partner's life. You have your kids' lives. Everybody's got their own circle of friends. Everybody's got their own activities. When your children get a little older, and you're feeling guilty about wanting their schedule to explode to the level that their friend's schedule explodes, and you lose your no, and they want to join another club or another sport or learn a new instrument, you can be in touch with your no and say, if that new activity or that new addition will deplete me and seed in me a space of resentment towards this child or towards my partner or towards this circumstance, I need to be an advocate for myself and say no to that. You have enough activities. We're staying home on Friday nights and we're not doing any activities. That can be a no. You know, or I think about, you know, the grandparent scenario. I'm thinking about my own grandmother. My mother takes care of my grandmother, but my grandmother is rocking. She's a badass. My grandmother doesn't really need my mom in the way that my mom thinks she does. So my mom actually has space for a no. My mom could easily go away for a weekend and hang out, and my grandmother would be totally fine. So she can do that and not invite guilt just because we're socialized into feeling guilty. Does that make sense to you?
Right. Absolutely. And I think those are very valid. And the thing is, too, you know, everyone is different. Everybody has to navigate these things in a way that works for them because, you know, for example, if you're part of a tight community where there are lots of activities, say if you're part of a church organization or something, you know, there's always stuff where there's these expectations that you show up, that you bring a dish, that you do this or that, you know. And but the thing people have to be aware of about their own self is some people are extroverted and some people are introverted. And the people who are introverted tend to be the ones who get depleted the most because they are, because of guilt and expectation, going to all the things, showing up for all the things, saying yes to all the things, when in fact what they really should be doing is saying no a lot and staying home and recharging their own batteries because that's the only way for them to stay healthy and happy and at peace is to have more alone time. And those, I mean, I'm one of them, you know. I'm actually kind of in the middle. If I've stayed home and been, you know, because I write a lot, I'm an author, so I spend a lot of time in front of a computer. On the phone, yes, with friends, but not necessarily out in the world with other people. If I stay in too much, I have to go out and do an event or go away for a weekend and see a lot of people for balance for me. But if I'm out a lot and see a lot of people and do event after event after event, then I need to stay home for a few days and just not be on the phone and not do anything because I'm trying to recharge. And women tend to lose touch with those needs that they have. And it's very, very important to realize that about yourself, whether you need to charge with people or you charge alone.
Yeah, that's a key concept and a key awareness. Perfect. Okay, everyone, you know what to do. Take this message to heart. Build it into your body. Join us in the Supreme Love Project Host Facebook group. I will let you in. We will have great discussions about this beautiful conversation. We will talk about next steps. And I will see you on the next Supreme Love Project. Bye-bye.
Thank you for participating in the Supreme Love Project. We're a division of Literacy for Life, LLC. Please visit thesupremeloveproject.com for more information about our products and services. Visit JeanineStaples.com for more information about our beloved founder and president. And remember, take this message to heart and build it into your body. We'll see you next time, right here. The place to make love, not war, every day of your life.